Hi, my name is Patrick Lager. I'm pleased to present part 2 of my Masters of Persimmon series. Over the last year, I've had the pleasure of getting to know David Bass, and I feel so blessed to call David my friend. He's a truly amazing individual. David is unique that he's not only one of the greatest golf club restorers in the world, he's also a master fitter and a golf instructor. I hope you will enjoy his story. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. It's fantastic. I
Yes, sir.
love this. And it's so nice to meet you. And you're one of the top people in the world restoring golf clubs. Can you tell me a little bit about how did you get into the golf restoring business, the club making business, and really becoming one of the best in the world?
It's an interesting story. I was a lover of music as a 13-year-old kid. I wanted to buy a stereo. I saw one at a department store I wanted. It was $14 a month. I was riding a school bus with a girl whose dad used to own a dairy farm. He sold the dairy farm and built a golf course. I said, I like cutting grass. So I told the girl, her name was Deborah, I said, Deborah, you think your dad could use somebody to cut grass because I need some money to buy myself a stereo. And she talked to her dad the next day. She said he hired me for $1.25 an hour to cut grass. I was the assistant greenskeeper, more or less. It was a guy who was the greenskeeper. I learned how to do that. I worked on the golf course basically 5 days a week. Then I was in the pro shop on weekends serving Cokes and selling sandwiches behind the counter. At that time, we were a major retailer even though we were down a dirt road on the golf course. We sold every major brand of golf clubs. And I was observing the gentleman on how he dealt with clients. When the shipments came in of the golf clubs and the new catalogs came in for Wilson and Hagen and Spalding and Dunlop and all the fantastic golf clubs, and then the Ping salesman would drive up in his car and sell his putters out of the back of his car for $14 a piece. I sold the first 2 set of Carson Pings in North Carolina to a couple, a husband and wife, who I played golf with. So learning the retail business, falling in love with golf people, that's part of it. 7 years later, I got a phone call from a guy who owned a little club repair shop in Raleigh. He said, we're going to open the first off-course shop in North Carolina. We want you to be the manager because we don't know anything about retail. So he hired me to be the retail manager, and I brought in tree-torn golf shoes, and I brought in a Spalding account, which we sold a lot of Spalding stuff, Lynx, Jones golf bags, all the things that were popular, Burton, and we became highly successful. They had a little shop in the back, and they serviced about 50 golf courses at that time. After about 2 years, the younger brother decided he wanted to take over the store, so he put me back doing his job, which was reshafting. The older brother did the refinishing. We moved to a bigger location, built a bigger shop, and after about 3 or 4 years, we had 850 golf courses that we serviced because we were an authorized repair center for Spalding, Hogan, Wilson, many companies. And I was in charge of the shaft inventory and reshafting clubs, doing custom work for good players and tour players. When I got through doing my work, in the mornings after I shipped all my stuff out and reshafted about 100 clubs, I would go help the guys in the other section do the refinishing. So I was there for 10 years. I had horses behind my house, and a building I had built out of old houses, a horse barn. I sold my horses and I floored in my stalls. made a golf shop in Cary, North Carolina. We picked up 75 golf courses we did repair work for, and I started doing refinishing myself. But not only that, but custom work, reshafting, fitting, golf lessons. I was driving about 10 miles to a driving range every night and teaching till dark. So my whole career has been, since I was 14, it's been full bore golf business, custom fitting. My expertise runs for tour players and really good players, but also for your weekend golfer. When it comes to refinishing restorations, it comes natural because I'm an artist at heart. When I was a young kid, I was in school. I majored in art and history and English and that type of stuff. So being artistic comes natural for me. And then from my background at the golf course, customer service was what has been entrenched in me. Yeah. So that's where we are.
Yeah. And throughout your career, how many clubs do you think you have built or restored?
I would say probably I've had my hands on 1 million golf clubs in my life and probably put on 2 million grips. It's countless numbers.
Yeah. Do you have a restoration or a club build that is the most memorable to you?
I have built one recently. I built a golf club. I refinished a golf club for Jackie Burke Jr. Through a friend of the family, and we sent it down. And I've got a picture of him holding it. The family asked us not to post a photograph because of his health, but that's one. I was also asked to do one for Bob Toski, and he's still around. But stuff like that, refinishing clubs for people that meant something to the golf business, that's what means the most to me.
Yeah. So you've probably seen every single club that's ever been made, every make, every model. Do you have a favorite club or model?
I tend to levitate toward the McGregor irons that have the green coating on them in the 50s, and also the putters of that style in some of the early 1950 McGregor woods, only because of the fascination with the shapes and the looks of them. But believe it or not, there are some golf clubs that I've seen that are obscure, like some early Bristol golf clubs, which you hardly ever see, like Persimmon woods. You never even think about them, with fantastic character to them. So I don't really get overly obsessed about one particular brand. I look for the quality of the individual golf club. About 30 years ago, I had a gentleman named Mark Belcher from Nebraska. He sent me a golf club that was made, it was a prototype that was made for Byron Nelson. And we sent this to my buddy Jerry Childress at Middle Ground, and he made me a turning. So we started producing our own woods back then. Obviously, when the biggest Big Bertha came out, myself and several other club makers in the area kind of quit doing woods, and we put everything in storage. It was kind of a dark time for us Persimmon guys. I never gave up. I never found a metalwood I was in love with. So when we started doing this again, about 5 years ago, I called Jerry. I said, Jerry, this is David Bass. Do you remember me? He says, yeah, I still got your turning. He says, I still got your stamp. You want to make some more clubs? And he's 82 now. He was in his 60s back then. So we started producing some club heads, and this is one of them, and some stuff that he did for me. He would send me to clubs like this, and now we're having him send us clubs, excuse me, they're unfinished, and we're able to take and put, you know, my name on the top of the golf club, my name on the bottom of the golf club. We can also put an individual's name. If you said, well, my name is, you know, Joe Smith, I can actually engrave Joe Smith. I had one gentleman that wanted his name engraved across the toe, so when it stuck out of the bag, he could see his name, so we did that.
That can be completely customized any way you want it.
Yes, shaft, grip, swing weight, insert, color, any type of customization you want. We'll do our best to make you happy with that. We are in the process of redesigning our sole plate to be a more conventional, a sweep back and a butterfly sole plate with you know, a more traditional look with the numbers on them. So that is coming. Should be hopefully by the end of this year we'll have that going. We have acquired a sole plate router. We'll be getting an insert router here soon, so we can just buy the blocks. And as opposed to having Jerry and Mark do the work in Kentucky, we can do the majority of it here. Starting back up our oil hardening process, where we start soaking the golf clubs, boiling them in sewing machine oil and linseed oil, and then hanging clubs to dry for 6 months to a year. All that stuff is coming.
It takes that long to oil harden heads.
The longer it sits, the better it is. So if you had some of the ones you saw with a very, very dark look, those were done, you know, 20 years ago. So it's just like anything. It's going to age with time and get better.
Yeah. Where do you source persimmon from today?
Jerry Childress and Mark Childress own a company called Middle Ground Golf. And I'm not sure if they get it now, but I know they have quite a bit. And they supply what few persimmon guys there are now doing it. They supply all of it. And if I need heads, or if I need like just some half-inch pieces to replace toes and heels, they supply it. As you can see, my shop is we've been here about a year, and everything is under construction. These are machines that I had in my previous shop 30 years ago that have been reconstructed. The motors, again, are not new, but they work perfectly. We had them rewired, and this is a steel wool machine here, and this is a flat wheel machine with Scotch-Brite on it. When you turn it on, it goes this way, and we've got the pulleys designed large to big here to slow it down a little bit, to get the speed right.
What is the right speed? How many RPMs for? Well,
this is 1725 is the speed. So if you slow it down, it's probably going to go, you know, 1600, which is slower. To me, that's the perfect speed when you're working on the golf club and you're trying to get the sole plate buffed.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want it going too fast and burning up the sole plate, but it does put a nice shine on it. This puts a finish, this puts a real polished shine on it.
So what do you start with when you first start sanding it?
So my optimum goal here is to be able to put like 220 on that one, and 320 and 400 and 800, and just work my way down. Okay. Because our dust collecting system has not been installed yet, I'm pretty much just using this one for now. I'm using the vacuum system, and I do the prep work by hand. So for instance, my individual Redale who works with me, he strips the golf club. I go in behind it and clean it up with, if I need to use 220 or 320, I do some of that by hand, but I'll go in here and clean the golf club up to where it's almost ready, okay? Which means I don't see a lot of lines in the wood or scratches in the wood, and it's relatively smooth. Then I'll bring it over here to the vise with 400 and 800 and kind of finish it up by hand.
Yeah. Can you sand it too much, too fine, where the stain doesn't take as well?
Well, every individual piece of wood has character. So you can literally have a set of 4 woods that have 4 different tones to them. Just because it's the same set of woods does not mean they came from the same tree.
Right.
And this is why sometimes you have to learn to mix things together to get the tone. Like one golf club might come out really light, one golf club come out darker, where you got to add a little bit of a different stain to the other one to make them match, to have them look the same. So learning how to match the color tone is an art form in itself. The importance of having a functional workspace is ergonomics. And over the years, I've learned to build my vices out on an island away from my bench, so I have a 180-degree ability to walk around. If my vice is on my bench, I can't walk around it. Okay? It's also important that I'm 6'1", so I've established a certain height I want for my benches, so I stand up and I can put my hands on them. I don't have to bend over. So ergonomic is critical. 40.5 inches works for me. I mount my vise up so I'm standing up, and this is chest high, so I'm working chest high.
It's important when you're standing here.
It's important when you're standing all day long. I've got rubber mats for my feet, okay? I've got a chair I can sit in if I need to do close-up work. So thinking through everything, make sure I have my hand tools where I can get my hands on them. I've got my screw extractor, I've got my torch, I've got my jar to put my screws in. I used to shoot horses, so I bought this anvil in 1980, and the lady told me it was 100 years old at that time. So this is the centerpiece for my shop for that reason, and it stays here.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception? People that send you clubs, what's the biggest misconception about restoring clubs, do you think, for the public?
That it's easy and quick. Because it never is. It's always a step-by-step process, and you always got to back up and say, well, you know, number one, is the shaft tight? Is the shaft not loose? Because a lot of the shafts in these old clubs were glued together with tar or pitch. And it may look tight, and by the time you cut the whipping off of it, it's moving. And I don't like to send the golf club back refinished and whipped, and by the time the shaft moves a few times, the whipping starts unraveling. So we look at, is the head loose? Is the insert loose? Is the sole plate loose? Is there something going on? Has the club been modified at some point in time?
So you got to tell me about this saw that you have behind you. That's something very impressive.
This is my grandfather's wood cutting saw. And it's the only thing I have that belonged to my grandfather on my daddy's side. And so I'm very happy to use this as a showpiece for my shop.